Have you ever wondered how one of the greatest empires in history managed to miss an entire continent? The Roman Empire conquered vast lands across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. They built incredible roads, massive cities, and one of the strongest armies the world had ever seen. Their influence stretched across 3 continents, and for centuries they dominated the ancient world. But despite all of this power and knowledge, the Romans never discovered America. Why? Was it because they weren't good sailors? Did they simply not know how to cross the ocean, or was there something much bigger stopping them? Let's find out. At its peak around the 2nd century AD, the Roman Empire controlled nearly 5 million square kilometers of land. Around 70 million people lived under Roman rule, making it one of the largest empires in history. The Romans were excellent engineers. They built aqueducts that carried fresh water into cities. They constructed roads that connected thousands of towns. Their architecture continues to amaze people even today. Their navy was also powerful. Roman ships controlled the Mediterranean Sea so completely that they called it Mare Nostrum, meaning our sea. So if they had such advanced ships, why didn't they simply sail west? The answer begins with geography. The Romans weren't an ocean empire. They were a Mediterranean empire. Almost every major Roman city was located close to the Mediterranean Sea. Their trade routes connected Egypt, Greece, Spain, North Africa, and the Middle East. Everything they needed already existed around them. Grain came from Egypt. Silver came from Spain. Wine came from Italy. Luxury goods arrived from India and Asia through established trade routes. There was no reason to search for unknown lands because their empire already had access to nearly everything they wanted. To the Romans, the Atlantic Ocean wasn't a doorway. It was a barrier. The Atlantic Ocean is completely different from the Mediterranean Sea. The Mediterranean is relatively calm and surrounded by land. Sailors could stay close to the coastline and easily find their way home. The Atlantic is another story. It's wider, rougher, and far more unpredictable. Powerful storms, massive waves, and strong ocean currents made long-distance travel extremely dangerous. Without modern weather forecasts or accurate navigation tools, sailing into the Atlantic was a huge risk. Imagine leaving the coast of Spain and seeing nothing but water for weeks. No islands. No ports. No way to find fresh food or drinking water. For ancient sailors, that wasn't an adventure. It was almost certain death. Another major problem was Roman ship design. Roman ships were built mainly for transporting soldiers, goods, and supplies across the Mediterranean. Many of them stayed close to the coastline whenever possible. If something went wrong, land was usually nearby. Crossing the Atlantic required a completely different kind of ship. The voyage could take over a month, depending on weather conditions. Ships needed large food supplies, fresh water, stronger hulls, and enough storage for long journeys. Roman ships simply weren't designed for that kind of expedition. Even if they wanted to try, the chances of surviving the journey were very small. Navigation was another enormous challenge. Today we have GPS, satellites, digital maps, and weather forecasts. The Romans had none of these. They relied on the sun, stars, coastlines, and experience. During cloudy weather, even these methods became difficult. More importantly, the magnetic compass hadn't yet reached Europe. Without a compass, sailing across thousands of kilometers of open ocean was incredibly dangerous. Once land disappeared behind you, it became very easy to lose direction. A small mistake could send an entire fleet hundreds of kilometers off course. But here's something interesting. Around 500 years after the Roman Empire collapsed, another group of people managed to reach North America. The Vikings. So what made them different? The answer is location. The Vikings didn't sail directly across the Atlantic in one journey. Instead, they traveled from Norway to Iceland. Then from Iceland to Greenland. Finally, from Greenland to the coast of North America. Each stop gave them fresh water, food, and a place to repair their ships. It was like crossing a river by stepping on stones instead of trying to swim the whole distance. The Romans never had that advantage. From Western Europe, America was simply too far away. Now here's a fascinating question. Could the Romans have reached America by accident? Some historians believe it's possible. The Atlantic Ocean has natural currents that flow from the west coast of Africa toward the Caribbean. If a Roman ship had been blown far off course during a storm, these currents might eventually carry it toward the Americas. But even if that happened, survival would have been incredibly difficult. Food would run out. Fresh water would disappear. Many sailors would likely die before reaching land. And even if they somehow arrived safely, how would they return? Without understanding the ocean currents or having ships designed for long voyages, getting back to Europe would have been almost impossible. If nobody returned home, nobody would know the journey had ever happened. There's another reason people often overlook. The Romans didn't think there was anything beyond the Atlantic worth finding. Ancient maps showed the known world ending at the Western Ocean. Many believed that beyond it was simply endless water. Some myths even described dangerous sea monsters living in those unknown waters. Whether sailors truly believed these stories or not, they certainly added to the fear of exploring unfamiliar oceans. When your empire already controls most of the known world, risking everything for an unknown journey doesn't seem very logical. History often makes us think that discovering America was inevitable. But it wasn't. Christopher Columbus didn't sail until 1492. That's over 1,000 years after the Roman Empire reached its peak. By then, shipbuilding had improved dramatically. Navigation tools had become much better. European kingdoms were searching for faster trade routes to Asia, creating a strong reason to explore. The world had changed. The Romans simply lived in a different time. Now imagine something completely different. What if the Romans had actually reached America? Would Roman cities have been built along the eastern coast? Would Latin become the dominant language across the Americas? Would the Roman Empire have become even larger? Could history have unfolded in a completely different way? We'll never know. But that's what makes history so fascinating. Sometimes a single journey, or the lack of one, can change the course of civilization forever. So why didn't the Romans discover America? Not because they lacked intelligence. Not because they lacked courage. But because they lacked the right combination of technology, geography, motivation, and opportunity. The Atlantic Ocean was simply too dangerous, their ships weren't built for such voyages, and there was no compelling reason to risk everything exploring an unknown horizon. History isn't only shaped by the things people do. It's also shaped by the things they choose not to do. And perhaps that's why one of history's greatest empires never found one of history's greatest continents. If you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to subscribe to Time Atlas, where we explore the mysteries, civilizations, and forgotten stories that shaped our world. Until next time, keep exploring.